The bizarre return of Pan Am Flight 914, time travel or glitch. Pan American World Airways was one of the most iconic names in the history of aviation. The airline's sleek, blue and white planes graced the skies from the early days of flight, setting standards in global travel and pioneering routes across the world. But in the summer of 1955, a particular flight operated by Pan Am would go on to become one of the most bizarre and unsettling mysteries in the history of aviation. It would become a mystery that no one could solve, and that would leave everyone wondering if it was just an accident or something far stranger. On July 2, 1955, Pan Am Flight 914, a routine flight from New York City to Miami. The aircraft was a Lockheed Constellation, beloved model known for its speed, stability, and reliability. The flight crew consisted of experienced pilots, and the passengers were unaware that they were about to become part of one of the most chilling aviation mysteries the world had ever seen. As the plane cruised at a comfortable altitude, everything seemed normal, but somewhere over the skies of Florida, something inexplicable happened. At 9:55 a.m., Flight 914 simply disappeared from radar. Air traffic control attempted to contact the plane, but there was no response. The standard protocol of attempts to re-establish communication with the aircraft went underway, but after several hours, there was still no sign of the flight. By nightfall, the flight was presumed lost, and a massive search operation was launched. Despite the best efforts of hundreds of people, no wreckage was found, and Flight 914 was never heard from again. The loss of a commercial flight like this was unusual in itself, but this story would take a turn that nobody could have predicted. It wasn't until nearly 37 years later, in 1992, that the world would learn what happened to Flight 914, and when the answers finally arrived, they were as baffling as the disappearance itself. It all began when, on the morning of March 9, 1992, a strange event occurred at Caracas International Airport in Venezuela. An air traffic controller was monitoring the skies when he noticed a plane appearing on his radar. Pan Am Flight 914. The only problem was that this was a flight that had vanished without a trace in 1955. The controller, confused and somewhat alarmed, quickly contacted the plane, which was flying in clear skies, seemingly unaware of any time that had passed. He heard the voice of the pilot, who identified themselves as the crew of Pan Am Flight 914. But something was odd about the conversation. The plane claimed to be flying from New York City to Miami, just as it had in 1955. The controller, understandably skeptical, told the crew that they had been missing for 37 years. The response was equally strange. The pilot, after a pause, seemed to brush off the information and said, "We've just crossed into Venezuela. We're almost at Miami." The conversation was surreal, and after some back and forth, the pilot was told to land immediately. The flight was ordered to divert to Caracas, and as the plane descended, it was met by authorities on the ground, prepared to investigate the unbelievable situation. When the plane finally landed, the mystery only deepened. The aircraft appeared completely intact, just as it had been when it took off from New York City in 1955. There was no visible sign of wear, no sign of distress. The crew, although slightly confused, seemed to be in good health. The passengers, when they disembarked, were stunned, but they were also disoriented, claiming that they had just been on a brief flight. None of them had aged a day since their departure. The most unsettling part of the whole story was that the passengers had no memory of the years that had passed. It was as though time had simply skipped for them. Investigations quickly commenced, and authorities were baffled by the lack of any physical evidence to explain what had occurred. There were no indications of the flight having crashed or landed anywhere between New York and Caracas. Theories began to abound, but none seemed to fit. Had the plane entered some kind of time warp, skipping forward nearly 4 decades? Was it a case of mass delusion, or perhaps a high-tech government experiment gone wrong? Some even speculated that the flight had been lost in some sort of Bermuda Triangle-type anomaly, only to return inexplicably decades later. Yet despite numerous inquiries, there was no official explanation. Pan American World Airways had long been out of business, and the records surrounding the flight were buried in archives. No conclusive evidence could be found to explain how Flight 914 could have disappeared and reappeared like this. Experts could not agree on what had happened, and the incident became a topic of fascination for conspiracy theorists, aviation historians, and curious minds around the world. What made the case even more perplexing was that the passengers who disembarked from the plane seemed unchanged by the passage of time. They had the same appearance as they did when they boarded the flight in 1955, and none of them could recall aging or experiencing the years between their departure and arrival. No one could provide an explanation for why this had happened, or how the plane had traveled through time, or whether the passengers had merely been in some sort of suspended animation. The mystery of Pan Am Flight 914 has since become an enduring puzzle in the annals of aviation history, one that no one has been able to solve. Some point to it as a possible time travel anomaly, a glitch in the fabric of space and time itself. Others see it as a hoax or a mistake, perhaps a case of mistaken identity with another flight. Whatever the truth may be, the story of Pan Am Flight 914 is a chilling reminder of how little we really know about the mysteries that can unfold in the skies. Today, the story of Pan Am Flight 914 remains one of the most talked about mysteries in aviation history. It raises unsettling questions about the nature of time, space, and human perception. Could there be parts of our world, parts of our own reality, that we are simply unaware of? Is it possible that there are anomalies in our understanding of time and space that we have yet to comprehend? And could there be other flights, other disappearances, out there that have simply slipped through the cracks of our awareness? Perhaps the story of Pan Am Flight 914 isn't just a historical curiosity. Maybe it's a warning and invitation to look deeper into the mysteries of the universe and the possibilities of things we have yet to understand. And until we have those answers, the mystery of Flight 914 will continue to captivate and intrigue those who dare to ask, what really happened to that plane? As we consider the story of Pan Am Flight 914, we must ask ourselves, what other mysteries lie hidden in the skies above us, waiting to be uncovered? And just how far are we willing to go to find the answers? If you enjoyed this mystery and want to uncover more mind-boggling stories, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.